Have you ever seen a cargo like this?
Now,
Beautiful thing. Look at the size of
that, Griff, is a massive oil rig. But the question is, how do you get that off a boat?
Something very large is heading for these shores. It weighs over 22,000 tons, stands 236 metres tall, and cost £123 million. It's a brand new oil rig called Prospector 1. It's travelled from China to Invergordon in the north of Scotland by hitching a ride on a ship called the Talisman. Transporting such a massive cargo 15,000 miles across the open sea is a huge engineering challenge. But now that they've got it here and it's perched upon the ship, how do they get it off the ship and into the water? That's the challenge facing Darren Sutherland from Prospector Offshore Drilling. And I bet you won't guess how they do it. Darren, you've got your shiny new oil rig here in place. How do you get it off the ship?
Well, the ship itself is designed to submerge. It's a bit like a submarine. So later tonight, the decks of the ship will actually be under the water and we'll float the rig off once the ship is under the water.
You're going to sink the ship?
We're going to partially sink the ship, yeah.
Underneath the oil rig and below the waterline is the equipment that makes this possible. Behind these walls are the ballast tanks in the bowels of the ship. There are 50 of them running end to end, and when it comes time to submerge, the crew will pump 99 million litres of water into these tanks, and before you know it, the deck will sink beneath the waves. But sinking a ship with a 22,000-ton structure on top of it is not easy. Imagine that this is the Cromarty Firth, and this is my version of the good ship Talisman. Now, let's put the rig on top, like this, and it becomes incredibly unstable. Because my ship has one large, half-filled tank, all the water sloshes to one side. Disaster! Causing the ship to roll. By filling smaller tanks one at a time, it means that most of them are completely full or completely empty. And lower it into the Cromarty Firth, like this. And it's stable because you don't get any sloshing about. It's 5 p.m. and the final sea fastenings are being removed. 8 hours later, and the process is well and truly underway. It's now 1 a.m. in the morning and the sinking of the ship has begun in earnest. It's really very strange. I was stood down there a few short hours ago and now there's a good foot of water with the waves lapping over the edges. While this is happening, the engineers are carefully monitoring the flow of water into the ballast tanks and checking the stability of the ship and the rig. At 7 a.m, the ship has sunk a total of 12 metres. That's the height of a 4-storey building. It's a bizarre sight. Now the most tricky part of the whole process is about to begin. So how long have you got to sort of get it off the ship?
Well, essentially we get the slack tide, so 1 hour. We need the slack tide because it's such a large vessel. We need to be able to control it very carefully and avoid colliding with the ship as we take it off.
When the crew get the call, they have to act quickly to release the lines. With minutes to spare, Prospector 1 is finally floating free. But for the ship that carried her here, the journey is far from over. Behind me is what's left of the Talisman, the bow and the stern sort of poking up like two islands in the sea. But that's all about to change. Now the process is reversed as the water is pumped out of the ballast tanks and the Talisman rises from the waves, ready for the next massive load that needs to be moved around the world.